The Nyxian warships appeared like obsidian shards against Earth's sky, their crystalline structures absorbing sunlight rather than reflecting it. 17 capital ships, each large enough to cast shadows over major cities, took up strategic positions around the globe. Humanity's first contact with alien life came not with a message of peace, but with the cold precision of a practiced conqueror. Grand Marshal Zatrax stood aboard the command deck of the Eternal Dawn, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the artificial light in faceted patterns. Unlike the insectoid or reptilian aliens of human imagination, the Nyxians were silicon-based life forms, their bodies a complex matrix of crystal and organic compounds that had evolved under the harsh radiation of their binary star system. "Begin the standard conquest protocol," Zatrax commanded, his voice resonating through the crystal acoustic communication system. The message was broadcast simultaneously in every human language, appearing on every screen and device capable of receiving a signal. "People of Earth, we are the Nyxian Collective. We have conquered 37 civilizations across 23 star systems. Our technological and evolutionary superiority is absolute. You have 6 hours to surrender and accept your place as a servant species or face complete annihilation. We are beyond your comprehension. We are inevitable." In the United Nations Emergency Security Council chamber, Dr. Helena Blackwood stood before the assembled leaders of Earth, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays showing the Nyxian fleet. At 63, she had spent her life studying military history and psychological warfare, never imagining she would apply her knowledge to an extraterrestrial threat. "They're making a fundamental mistake," she declared, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "They're showing us everything they want us to see, but they're not seeing what they need to see." "Dr. Blackwood," the UN Secretary General leaned forward, "we have less than 6 hours before they expect an answer. Our most advanced weapons systems can't penetrate their shields. What could they possibly be missing?" Helena moved to the central display, bringing up historical images that seemed out of place in this discussion of alien invasion. The Battle of Thermopylae, the American Revolution, the Afghan resistance against multiple superpowers, Vietnam, urban warfare in modern conflicts. Humanity has spent millennia perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. We've learned to turn overwhelming force against itself. Lieutenant General Thomas Akanjo of the Nigerian Armed Forces stood up. "You're suggesting we fight an enemy that can destroy our cities from orbit using guerrilla tactics." "I'm suggesting we show them something they've never seen before," Helena replied. "Look at their message, 37 civilizations across 23 star systems. They're used to species that either have comparable technology or simply submit. Their entire strategy revolves around overwhelming force and expectation of surrender. But humanity—" She paused, allowing a slight smile. "Humanity has never followed the expected path." As the council debated, Dr. Blackwood's team was already compiling a response. Not a message of surrender or defiance, but a carefully curated historical record. Videos of cities rising from atomic ash to become greater than before. Documentation of resistance movements that brought empires to their knees. Evidence of humanity's endless capacity to adapt, innovate, and overcome. Aboard the Eternal Dawn, First Observer Kilk studied the incoming data stream with growing concern. "Grand Marshal, the humans are responding, but not as anticipated." Zatrax approached the crystalline display, expecting to see either surrender terms or futile threats. Instead, he found himself watching centuries of human warfare unfold before him. His crystalline form refracted light in patterns that indicated confusion. "They fight themselves," he questioned, watching battles spanning centuries, tactics evolving, technology advancing, but the fundamental human spirit remaining unchanged. "Continuously, without end." "Not just fighting, sir," Kilks corrected. "Learning, adapting. They have more documented military history than all our previous conquest targets combined, and something else." The observer hesitated. "Speak," Zatrax commanded. "They don't just fight with weapons. They fight with ideas, with innovation. They've developed entire philosophies of warfare that don't depend on technological superiority. And, sir," They're still sending data. This is just the beginning. As the 6-hour deadline approached, Dr. Blackwood stood again before the Security Council. "We don't need to match their technology," she declared. "We just need to show them that humanity has never needed technological superiority to change the course of history. We've faced extinction-level threats before from nature, from ourselves. Each time we've adapted, survived, emerged stronger." The Secretary General nodded slowly. "And if they choose to attack anyway?" Helena's expression hardened. "Then they'll learn what every empire throughout human history has learned. Declaring victory and achieving it are very different things." The deadline passed without a formal response from Earth. In the crystalline chambers of the eternal dawn, Grand Marshal Zaatrax's form pulsed with waves of dark energy, a sign of extreme agitation among his kind. "Begin the invasion," he commanded, his voice resonating through the crystal acoustic network. Across Earth's skis, Nyxian dropships descended through the atmosphere, their crystalline structures refracting sunlight in dazzling displays of power and intimidation. But something was wrong. "Sir," First Observer Kilks reported, "we're detecting anomalies in our targeting systems. The humans' population centers. They're not where they should be." The massive holographic display showed major cities seemingly dissolving into countless smaller heat signatures, spreading out across regions in patterns that defied the Nyxians' strategic algorithms. Dr. Helena Blackwood's plan was working. Operation Looking Glass had transformed Earth's urban centers into fluid, mobile networks. Millions of civilians had evacuated along predetermined routes, carrying with them portable infrastructure that kept basic services running. Every city had become 1,000 small towns, every town 100 hidden communities. Admiral Wei Lin, coordinating from a mobile command center in the Taiwanese mountains, watched the Nyxian ship's confusion with grim satisfaction. "They're used to static targets," she communicated to the Global Defense Network. "Let's show them how humanity adapts." The first wave of Nyxian ground forces landed in what their scans showed as high-value targets, only to find abandoned decoy sites rigged with primitive but effective traps. Their crystalline bodies, evolved for strength and resilience, proved surprisingly vulnerable to simple physics. "Grand Marshal," Kilks reported, "our first wave is reporting 40% casualties from construction equipment and industrial chemicals. The humans are using their own infrastructure as weapons." In Lagos, Lieutenant General Thomas Akanjo received the first battle reports with measured optimism. "The Nyxians fight like they've never faced defeat," he told his staff. "That means they don't know how to learn from it." Colonel Marcus Rodriguez's asymmetric defense initiative was proving its worth. Every Nyxian tactic was met with a dozen different human responses, each testing the aliens' adaptability. When they tried to establish forward bases, they found the ground beneath them mysteriously unstable. When they attempted to track human resistance groups, they found themselves chasing digital ghosts through communication networks that evolved faster than their tracking systems. Dr. Blackwood, now operating from a converted mining facility deep in the Ural Mountains, coordinated the psychological aspect of humanity's defense. "The Nyxians based their entire strategy on technological superiority," she explained to her international team. "But they never considered that technology isn't everything. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to turn anything into an advantage." On the Eternal Dawn, Zaatrax faced a situation unprecedented in Nyxian military history. Their standard conquest protocols were failing. Every attempt to establish control was met with not just resistance, but innovation. "How are they coordinating without centralized command?" he demanded, watching as another dropship reported critical damage from supposedly primitive weapons. "How are they adapting faster than our tactical systems?" "Sir," Kilks ventured, "I believe we fundamentally misunderstood human warfare. Their historical records weren't just documentation, they were preparation. Every human has access to millennia of tactical knowledge. They're not following a central strategy, they're all strategists." In orbit, the Nyxian fleet faced a choice they had never encountered: escalate to full orbital bombardment and destroy the very resources they came to claim, or continue a ground war that was rapidly proving far costlier than any in their history. Admiral Wei Lin's next phase was ready. Across the globe, hidden electromagnetic pulse generators, built from modified civilian technology, waited for her signal. The Nixian's crystalline technology, while advanced, had never been tested against the full spectrum of human ingenuity. "Commence Operation Firefly," she commanded. Thousands of coordinated EMP bursts hit the Nixian ground forces. Their crystalline systems, optimized for power and efficiency, proved unexpectedly sensitive to certain frequencies, a weakness humanity had discovered through rapid trial and error. In the Urals, Dr. Blackwood received the latest psychological analysis of intercepted Nixian communications. "They're experiencing something they've never faced before," she told her team. "Uncertainty. Their entire civilization is built on absolute superiority. Now they're learning what humans have always known: true strength comes from overcoming doubt, not avoiding it." The Nixian ground forces found themselves fighting not just humans, but human history itself. Every tactic they employed was met with countermeasures developed through centuries of warfare. Their advanced weapons were rendered less effective by simple, innovative defenses. Their strategic AI, designed to counter technological threats, struggled to predict a species that thrived on unpredictability. As the first day of invasion drew to a close, humanity had sent the Nixians a clear message. Technological superiority meant nothing against the power of adaptation. The real war was just beginning, and Earth's greatest weapon wasn't its military might. It was the collective experience of countless generations who had learned, adapted, and overcome. 3 weeks into the invasion, the Nixian fleet faced a crisis unprecedented in their species' history. Grand Marshal Zatrax stood in his command chamber, watching real-time updates that defied everything he had believed about warfare and conquest. 60% of our ground forces are effectively neutralized, First Observer Kilks reported, his crystalline form dulled with stress. Not through destruction, but through innovation. The humans have found ways to disrupt our crystalline molecular structures using combinations of sonic frequencies and electromagnetic fields, technology that should be centuries beneath us. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned the Nixians' greatest strength into a vulnerability. Their crystalline biology, evolved for durability and power, had precise resonance frequencies. Frequencies that humans had discovered and weaponized in less than a month. In her mobile command center, now hidden in the Amazon rainforest, Dr. Helena Blackwood coordinated with Admiral Wei Lin and Lieutenant General Akanjo. "The Nixians are approaching their breaking point," she explained. "Not physically, but psychologically. They've never faced an enemy that grows stronger through resistance." Admiral Wei Lin's holographic projection nodded. "Our distributed defense network is proving more effective than even we anticipated. Every civilian with a smartphone is a reconnaissance unit. Every local knowledge holder is a tactical advisor. We're not just fighting them, we're outthinking them." The screens showed Nixian dropships grounded by makeshift electromagnetic disruptors built from modified power stations. Crystal warriors immobilized by precisely calibrated sound waves produced by repurposed concert equipment. Every human innovation spawned a dozen more, spreading globally through the adaptive defense network. But the true impact was psychological. The Nixians had built their entire civilization on the certainty of their superiority. Now that certainty was crumbling. On the Eternal Dawn, the first signs of division appeared among the Nixian command. "We should withdraw and reassess," Subcommander Vix argued, their crystalline form resonating with concern. "These humans, they're not just fighting us. They're studying us, learning us. Every engagement makes them stronger." "Withdraw," Zatrax's form pulsed with dangerous energy. "We are the Nixian collective. We have never retreated, never failed, never." "Never faced anything like them," Kilks interrupted, displaying new data. "Look at these adaptation curves. They're not just using their history, they're writing new chapters of it with every battle. Our tactical AI can't predict them because they're literally inventing new forms of warfare faster than we can analyze them." In Nigeria, Lieutenant General Akanjo received reports of the latest human innovations. Civilian engineers had developed ways to detect Nyxian cloaking fields using modified traffic cameras. University students had created algorithms that could predict Nyxian patrol patterns based on their crystalline biology's response to Earth's magnetic field. "We're not just resisting," he told his international colleagues. "We're revolutionizing warfare itself." Colonel Marcus Rodriguez's asymmetric defense initiative had evolved beyond its original scope. It was now a global think tank, combining military strategy with civilian innovation. Traditional military hierarchies had given way to fluid, adaptive networks that mirrored humanity's new understanding of conflict. "The Nyxians thought war was about power," Rodriguez explained to a group of civilian innovators. "We're showing them it's about adaptation." Dr. Blackwood's psychological warfare team detected growing instability in Nyxian communications. Their rigid command structure was struggling to cope with an enemy that refused to follow any predictable pattern of behavior. "They're experiencing cultural shock," she analyzed. "Their entire society is built on the idea of inevitable victory through superior force. We're not just challenging their military doctrine, we're challenging their worldview." In orbit, the Nyxian fleet's crystalline ships hung like frozen tears above Earth, their commanders facing a choice that challenged millennia of certainty. Their ground forces were not just being defeated, they were being educated. Every encounter with humans revealed new weaknesses in their supposedly perfect forms. But the true crisis was philosophical. The humans weren't trying to match Nyxian technology, they were rendering it irrelevant. They fought not with just weapons, but with ideas, not with force, but with endless innovation. Subcommander Vix addressed the Fleet Council. "We've discovered something we never knew existed, a species that doesn't just adapt to survive. They survive to adapt. Our strength is our perfection. Their strength is their imperfection, their endless drive to improve." As the fourth week of invasion began, humanity had delivered its most powerful message yet. True strength lies not in being unbeatable, but in knowing how to rise when beaten. The Nyxians had come expecting to find primitives. Instead, they had found teachers. The message that changed everything came not from Earth's military command, but from a children's science class in Mumbai. 10-year-old Aisha Patel had been studying the Nyxian crystals from a damaged dropship when she made an observation that would reshape the conflict. "They're not just fighting machines, they're growing things. They're alive. Maybe they can learn like we do." Dr. Helena Blackwood stood before the United Nations Emergency Council, now operating from a network of underground facilities across 5 continents. "The girl is right," she declared. "We've been so focused on fighting the Nyxians, we haven't considered teaching them." In orbit, the Nyxian fleet faced its own revolution. First observer Kilkes presented evidence that was shattering centuries of military doctrine. "Our defeat was inevitable," he told Grand Marshal Z.A. Trax. "Not because humans are stronger, but because they understand something we forgot. True evolution never stops." The crystalline command chamber of the Eternal Dawn resonated with tension as Kilkes continued. "Every species we've conquered had reached what they thought was perfection. But humans, they never stopped evolving. They don't seek perfection, they seek improvement. Endless, constant improvement." Admiral Wei Lin, coordinating from her mobile command center, received the first signals of change. The Nyxian fleet was shifting formation, but not for attack. Their crystalline structures were altering, adapting, something their species hadn't done in millennia. "They're learning," she communicated to the global network. "Not just tactically, but biologically. They're remembering how to evolve." Lieutenant General Akanjo watched the transformation through advanced sensors. The Nyxian ships were changing their crystalline structure, becoming less rigid, more adaptive. "They're not retreating," he realized. "They're growing." In the Amazon Command Center, Dr. Blackwood worked with an international team to craft humanity's most ambitious message yet. Not a show of force or a historical lesson, but an invitation. Join us in evolution. The transmission reached the Nyxian fleet in all its frequencies: radio waves, quantum signals, and precisely calibrated vibrations that resonated with their crystalline forms. It carried not just words, but a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to transform weakness into opportunity. Grand Marshal ZA Trax, his crystalline form now showing patterns never before seen in Nyxian history, made an unprecedented decision. "We came to conquer," he announced to his fleet, "but instead we have been awakened. Humanity has shown us what we lost in our pursuit of perfection, the power of imperfection itself." The response came not as surrender or victory, but as transformation. The Nyxian fleet began a metamorphosis, their rigid crystalline structures becoming more fluid, more adaptive. They had rediscovered something their species had forgotten in their drive for perfection, the joy of evolution itself. Colonel Marcus Rodriguez, standing in the ruins of what had been a battlefield, watched as Nyxian warriors transformed their weapons into tools of exploration and learning. "They're not just changing their tactics," he observed. "They're changing their entire purpose." In the weeks that followed, Earth became not a conquered world, but a crucible of cooperation. Nyxian crystalline technology merged with human adaptability, creating innovations neither species could have achieved alone. Their rigid perfection, combined with humanity's endless drive to improve, sparked a renaissance of development and discovery. Dr. Blackwood, in her final report to the UN, summarized the true victory. "We didn't win by being stronger or more advanced. We won by showing them that the greatest strength isn't in achieving perfection, but in never stopping the journey toward it." The Nyxian fleet remained in Earth's orbit, but not as conquerors. They had become students of humanity's greatest lesson, that true power lies not in being unbeatable, but in being endlessly willing to learn, adapt, and grow. First Observer Kilks, now leading a joint human-Nyxian research initiative, expressed it best in his communication to the Nyxian homeworld. "We came seeking to prove our perfection. Instead, we found something far more valuable, the perfect imperfection of endless evolution." As Earth entered a new era of interstellar cooperation, the story of the Nyxian invasion became not one of conflict, but of transformation. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious, but as teachers to the very species that had come to conquer them. The universe's deadliest warriors had indeed challenged humanity, and in losing their war, they had gained something far greater, a future of infinite possibility, guided by the human spirit of endless adaptation and growth.